Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at a good collection of delays and reverbs, everything from about $60 to $70 all the way up to about $350. And I'm going to show, how the individual pedals sound, and then a couple groupings, how I use them together, or how you guys can use them to create different textures or whatever. So let's go ahead and hop into it, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. I should say from the start too, mostly what I'm going to be focusing on is two types of reverb, and one is more towards ambient bass wells. So I'm looking for a low, thick, modulated sort of sound that can have some movement but keep the low end intact for volume swells and things like that to really beef up the low end. And then in addition to that, I want to test how they are for lead lines. So bringing the mix back a little bit and having more of the lead line come through with just a little bit of prettiness and texture to it. So I'll try to focus on those two aspects for each pedal and which ones, if their strength is one or the other or both or neither. So we'll go through them and find out. First up, we have the Muar Echo Verb. This is I believe it's about a $60 to $70 pedal. I got mine for about $61 through Reverb, and it was new. So I'll put links to all these in the description so you can kind of find out, what's the best price. And Reverb is usually pretty good at sorting them by price and letting you know what are the best deals. So anyways, I got this for about 61 bucks, and it has delay and reverb together. And to switch the controls, you just flip this little switch and you can go from controlling the reverb to the delay, and you have your mix and feedback and all that stuff. And what I really like about this pedal is not only does it have a tap tempo here that you can hit with your finger, but if you hold the foot switch down for a second, it turns red, and then that becomes your tap tempo for a few seconds. And then as soon as you stop tapping it, then it'll go back to the normal function of turning it on or off. So let's go ahead and hear what this sounds like. So I'll go ahead and turn the mix up a little bit to help it be a little thicker. So let's go ahead and turn that mix down. So right there you're hearing just the delay side because I turned the reverb side down. So we'll go ahead and mess with the delay side just a little bit. Hear that, and we'll kind of let it trail out a little bit. So that sounds pretty good. That'll get us a nice little thick sound. And then we'll go ahead and add in the reverb a little bit, and we'll go ahead and readjust these controls. So let's go ahead and hear what that sounds like. So this pedal does really good at maintaining that low end while I'm doing the chord changes. And you can hear that low D just kind of carrying through as I do all the other things and fade in and out with the volume pedal. And so now the volume pedal has been completely off right when I hit that note, and you can hear the low end just maintains throughout. So that's really good for some swells. And then we'll pull the mix back a little bit for each of these, and we'll just hear how that same setting without messing with anything else sounds for, a lead line. Yeah, this pedal does really, really well. I was honestly very surprised at such a cheap and small little pedal, how well thought out it was with the tap tempo feature and a limited amount of space, how they were able to let you have all the controls over it. So I was really impressed by this pedal. Now let's hear how the RV6 sounds. I've had this pedal before, and it was my go-to delay and reverb mixed together pedal with one switch. Doesn't have tap tempo or anything like that, but it does have stereo in and out and expression control. And it has other reverb features because it's mainly a reverb pedal, like modulation and shimmer and a bunch of other different effects. But what I'm mainly focusing on is the delay aspect of it, and I will show you a little bit of the modulation as well. So I've dialed in a little bit of a thicker setting, and I'll go ahead and show you what that sounds like. So it does pretty good at maintaining the low end. Unfortunately, with the delay setting, the tone control, which would normally thicken up your low end on the reverb part of it, it turns into a repeats control. So it controls the amount of repeats. So you can kind of make the repeats last a little longer, which does sort of help thicken it up, but it doesn't necessarily have a thickness control or tone control for the delay setting. But when you switch over to the modulation, it actually will become a tone control, and we can mess with that and hear how that sounds. And I'll turn the mix down just a little bit. So we want to go ahead and thicken that up. So we'll add a little mix back, and I don't remember which way the tone goes, but we'll try both ways. So that sounds super dark. So with this setting, you can hear that it really does have a lot more low end to it, and it maintains, you know, that solid foundation for doing swells. It doesn't lose the low end when you roll the volume pedal back. So that actually works better than the delay section. I'm hearing that right now. So that sounds really good. And you can hear with the modulation, it does add a little bit of movement to the low end. So we'll just pay attention to that a little bit. So yeah, I really like that over the delay sound. So let's roll back the mix a little bit and we'll hear how it sounds more in a lead context. I'll actually roll most of these back just a little bit, as to not be a little too intrusive. That sounds really good. All right, moving on to the DDR by Keeley Electronics. I originally had the Keeley Caverns in this spot, but the pedal is having some issues and I'm getting that sorted with Keeley. And just to get this video rolling, because this pedal costs the same exact amount and it sort of it fits the bill of what I'm trying to do. So we'll go ahead and use this. The difference between this one and all the other ones here is it has a drive circuit on the right side and a delay or reverb on the left side. So you can't do delay and reverb with it, but you can do delay or reverb, and you have a few options of what kind of drive and what kind of reverb. So I'm really bummed that I didn't get to show you the Caverns, but I do have a demo of it that I did a couple years ago. You can check that out up in the top. And if you guys want to see more in depth of that pedal, just let me know in the comments. And when I get the new one, I'll make sure to add that to the list. But for now, let's check this out. We'll hear a little bit of the dry sound. And we'll add the drive in, which is pretty high drive. Adds a really good texture to it, and what I really like is that since it's in one pedal, you can kind of do your reverb, but then you can add the drive, which drive on any reverb will add a lot of texture to it. So let's hear how that sounds. So that's a pretty good lead line, I'd say. So we'll roll the gain back just a little bit and we'll go ahead and try to do some swells with this and hear how that sounds. So with the reverb setting and everything kind of maxed out as far as I can get it, you can hear it does cut out a little bit of the low end. As soon as the volume pedal rolls back, the low end kind of cuts out, which is a weakness for doing some swells, but it's a strength as far as lead lines go. Because when you're doing lead lines on bass, it tends to get a little muddy if you have that low end intact. So when you're doing just regular lead line stuff, the low end stays on your you know, your dry notes, but then it fades out on the reverb notes, which sounds really good for lead line stuff. So we'll go ahead and shut that off, and we'll try the delay side, which I might want to be careful with these controls, and we'll hear how that sounds with lead line stuff, and we'll do some swells. So this is going to go for a while. So we'll focus on lead line first. And then we'll try to thicken it up a little bit and start to do some swells. I can hear already that it's maintaining the low end a lot better. So let's bump up the drive a little bit. Actually, let's bump it up a lot, and we'll bring this down just a little bit. So yeah, the delay side does a really good job at maintaining that low end. So if you're going to use this for more for swells, then you would use the delay side. And if you want lead lines, you know, maybe the delay side if you want the movement, or the reverb side if you want the texture. So we'll move on from this, and moving on to the Astronaut. It has a lot of step sequencers and arpeggiators and just a lot of filters and different things in here that can really make some cool sounds that are kind of out of this world, but for a basic delay and reverb. It has good reverb sounds and good basic delay sounds, but I was trying to find something with both of them, and this is the setting that I came up with. So let's hear how that sounds. Really good low end maintaining, and it actually sounds pretty clear as well. So let's try some swells with it. So you can hear the setting just has a lot of little atmospheric filters and really sets up a really beautiful texture. And it's been doing a good job at maintaining low end, but still sounding clear for picking. So I'll go ahead and switch it to this other setting that I found, and I believe this is right. So if you see the settings jump around a little bit, it's just me messing with the controls for a second. So you can hear it has a really good atmospheric type sound. What I'm actually playing, the foundation of what I'm playing gets lost inside the ambience of the reverb that's in there, but I really like that for a texture building type pedal. And there's a lot more to dig in. There's a bunch of different settings, and if you hold the foot switch, there's a whole nother back page of settings that I've gone through, and just each one sounds cooler than the next. So I'd really suggest checking this out. I have a demo coming up of this that I need to do, and we'll go more in depth of that. But just want to say that this is a really good, texture building pedal. If you really need some like inspiration for different sounds and stuff, this is a really strong contender. And as you can hear, it's done really well holding low end and still sounding clear for lead lines. So we'll move on from that one. Next up is the Source Audio Collider. This is a dual DSP delay and reverb combination pedal. Yeah, you can do endless amounts of customization to this and in-depth programming. Pretty much if you want to have a very specific sound with very specific controls, you more likely than not can program this to do it. And so one of the things that I liked about it is that you can program each side to be a delay or a reverb. So you can have 2 delays, 2 reverbs, or 1 of each. And for now, I'm kind of leaving everything on the default and just found a setting that I like because I don't want to get into all the in-depth stuff in this video, just to keep it short and to the point. So what I found was a good delay and reverb combo that should, suit both settings really well. And let's go ahead and hear that. I think I want to hear the reverb side first. So beautiful sounding reverb, and let's go ahead and hear what the delay sounds like by itself. And let's put them both together. Does a really good job at both being clear and maintaining the low end. So let's try to play a lead line through this and hear how that sounds. It just has a really good clarity to the sound and really good texture that I really like. And let's just keep it short, and I won't go through all the in-depth controls on this. And I will be coming up with a demo with this one pretty soon as well, so keep an eye out for that. So moving on to the top row, I've grouped these into 2 sections. Since each pedal is either a delay or a reverb and they don't have both built in, I grouped them together because if you want to spend a little more money and get 2 separate pedals and have the flexibility of having that, I want to let you know what it sounds like. First up, we'll look at the Walrus Audio Slow Reverb and the Keeley Echoes. So the Echoes is a flanged delay pedal. So it's got a tape flange on it, which I really am a big fan of modulated delays or modulated reverbs, if you can't tell already, because pretty much with any of these settings, I really aim for the modulated type sound, just because it gives it that little bit of movement to your low end without taking away from the foundation, but it still gives it a lot of character. So I'm really a fan of both of these because they have a modulated section to it. So let's go ahead and start with the Walrus Audio Slow. And there's 2 different forms of modulation on this, which I try to keep them a little bit tamed because it can get a little bit detuned sounding, which is not what I'm aiming for. But it has a good set of controls for mix and tone, or your low end. And yeah, this is a really beautiful pad sounding reverb. So let's hear how that sounds. And let's freeze it so you can hear how that sounds. So now that I can stop playing and it carries on, so you can engage, like say the Keeley, and you can play a little lead line over that while it's doing that. So yeah, that's just one way to add some, a little bit of texture if you're going to be holding a single note for a while. Or you can play around with hitting this foot switch while you're changing notes and all that stuff, which I can't do right now because it's my hand and a little tricky, but let's hear how they sound together normally. very thick texture. And it's, like I said, with the modulation added on both of these, just super subtle, but it does give it that little bit of movement. So I'll show you by cutting out the modulation on this, which will take out that flange effect, and you can kind of hear the difference it makes. So you can hear it's more of a straightforward delay sound, and it is starting to feed back because when you take that flange out, it tends to feed back a little bit more, I've noticed. I think I just put it right back where I had it. So yeah, just a straightforward delay sound, which you can get from most pedals, I would say, but when you add in that flange, we'll push it to the extreme this time and let you hear how that sounds. You can kind of hear how it fades the note out really nice and lovely. Actually, let's take this out for a second and you can hear the flange delay by itself. So yeah, with the combination like these, or you can mix and match what you want, a different delay or a different reverb, doesn't matter. But when you start to layer different things like that, you can kind of maximize your potential for different types of sounds and different things, and you can just kind of build your arsenal, so to speak, which I really like doing. All right, moving on from the Walrus and Keeley, we'll start with the Rose and the Strymon. The Strymon Blue Sky is really neat because it does come with two presets where the main engage button is what you see on the controls, that's what this one will engage, and then you have a favorite set which you can program and it'll just remember what you had programmed at that time. So because we're talking about how I like to do swells and I like to do lead lines, this really worked out in that I can set this for my swells sound, and then the favorites button, when I hit that will engage my lead line sound, which is pretty much the same settings as far as the switches and type of reverb, but it does cut a little bit of the low end in mix, so you can hear more of the lead sound, more of the dry bass. And so let's hear how that sounds with the swells. So you can hear it's just super thick, just a little bit of texture to it, which I really like. I don't have a whole lot of texture built into it because the Eventide kind of takes care of that, because for the most part I'm using these together. But let's hear the lead line sound of this. So you can hear it's pretty subtle. I probably should bring that a little bit more into the mix, but you can just hear how a little bit of mix control and low end control can really make the difference in your reverb sound. So last up we have the Eventide Rose. Like I said, this is the pedal that I'm using on my board. You can see that the Rose lights up with the modulation speed, and this little light goes along with the tap tempo part. And yeah, it's just been a really great sounding delay. I really am a big fan of the modulation on it. It just really helps thicken it up and gives it a lot of good texture. I know I keep using the word texture, but it's just, forgive my limitation of words and just really listen to the sounds of these pedals. And so you can change the modulation type and different things. I'm really a fan of the sine wave because it's a gentle in and out as far as the modulation shape. And I usually keep the rate and depth kind of at a medium setting just to kind of keep it a little more subtle. And everything else is pretty straightforward. I don't have the reverse setting on or half speed or anything like that. And then the tap tempo will go along to whatever I'm playing. So let's go ahead and hear how that sounds. So you can really hear how it just maintains the low end, has a good amount of movement in the modulation, and it just really just makes that sound just really full and really interesting to listen to without being, you know, distracting or whatever. And yeah, it's just, I've really come to love this pedal. And even though I'm not using it to its fullest potential, it's just the sound by itself is worth the price, in my opinion. So let's hear how this sounds in conjunction with the Strymon, which is how I'll be using it most of the time. And yeah, we'll just keep going with some swells. So yeah, that's about it. If there's something I missed or something you want to see a little more in depth, please leave a message in the comments and I'll try my best to get to that. I'll more likely than not put short clips on Instagram in the stories or in the posts. So you can follow me on Instagram at AdamArts. Leave a message with something that you want to see, how you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing a live stream of a lot of Keeley effects and some other companies as well that I have stuff being sent to me. So in the next week or two, you should see a live stream notification pop up. So do subscribe and hit the bell and all that random stuff if you want to see that. I have a good handful of Keeley effects, including the caverns, which I didn't get to in this demo, and the Synth 1 and other cool effects from Keeley and other cool brands to come soon. So please follow along and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.